Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Not back rooms, but just creepy office buildings. I'm an old boomer that has trouble keeping up with meme culture, so when I saw people posting pictures of old creepy abandoned offices, I thought it was something I could get on board with and share my experiences with. However, it's some shitty creepypasta stuff and roleplay about, if you do some ritual, you can go to some dimension. Well, I'm here to tell you that there's plenty that goes on in real office buildings after hours that's bizarre and creepy as hell. I've worked as a third shift maintenance man, janitor, and security guard for 18 years. I work for a company that takes general housekeeping contracts out on older or abandoned office buildings, and we keep the lights on and just generally try to keep the place from completely getting overrun with homeless people and graffiti. Overall, it's a really chill job. I spend most nights watching Netflix, taking out some trash, replacing a light bulb or ballast, and telling kids, listen man, y'all can skate here or hang out. Just don't get into trouble and watch out for cameras. But in 18 years, I have come across some things that really seemed strange, creeped me out, or flat out bothered me to a point where I refused to go back to a particular building. If y'all want, I can share some of my stories. None of them will be particularly exciting, but they're all true occurrences that I can't completely explain, or that just aren't quite normal. You'll also have to excuse me if I take my time in posting. I'm not in a particular hurry because I've got all night. But if you have any questions or comments, I'm open to that as well. Whenever people ask me whether I get scared at my job or if I find it creepy, I always share this story with them first. I used to be really hesitant about sharing it because I wasn't sure how people would respond. But over the years, I've shared it on 4chan a couple times in various places on the internet. A long time ago, when I first started with the company, one of the first buildings they put me in was an old scheduling building owned by a hospital. Primarily, it was used as an archive for medical records and patient and employee schedules, and it was one of the most repressive and depressing buildings I have ever seen. There were no decorations or wall fixtures in the building, only miles of desks and filing cabinets. The very first week that I worked there, a doctor jumped off the roof to his death, and everyone there acted like it was just another day at the office. They told me that a couple years before that, one of the higher-ups apparently killed his wife on a boat, then fled the country. There were all kinds of stories like this, but you can never be quite sure in the workplace how much of it's true and how much is exaggerated. So I worked in this place for a couple years, and the whole time I'm there, I kept having these bizarre feelings. I would constantly get this image in my mind that I was being watched, like there was an old woman with long black hair staring at me from around the corner. I would always look and feel foolish, but the feeling still loomed. Sometimes I would be walking towards a window at night, and my obscured reflection would look like I was being followed. But it was a trick of the light. Despite all this, I never thought anything was too off. I just thought it was spooky, and I kept it to myself, never mentioning it to anyone else. Until one time I went on vacation. When I came back, my coworker who I was trading shifts with claimed that he kept having feelings like he was being watched by an old lady or something. And he wasn't the only one to make that sort of claim in private. Another coworker years later mentioned to me that he hated working at that building. When I asked him why, he leaned in and quietly told me, when I was in the bathroom, I thought I saw a woman that looked like the Wicked Witch out of the corner of my eye. So after all this, it's one of the only buildings where I flat out will say no to. I don't work there anymore. The thing is, I don't even believe in ghosts. I'm not sure what exactly is going on with that place, but it definitely has something in particular that's oppressive that buries that image of an old woman with black hair into people's minds. There was another occasion where I was making rounds in an annex of a building. Everything was just like a normal night, when suddenly I heard footsteps on the other side of a row of cubicles. I was supposed to be the only one in that building, and it had been locked down hours ago. So I called out, hello? Whoever it was suddenly burst into a sprint, and I could hear them breathing. That not being the normal reaction, I decided to follow, but they were really fast, and I saw the door of the offices swing open. I ran to the security office, and my coworker and I reviewed the footage, and you can see the door suddenly swing open, but nobody walks through. A few seconds later, you see me walk through. His first reaction was the door must have been cracked a bit and the AC kicked on. But I know that I heard footsteps before this. I spent the rest of the night reviewing footage and making rounds, but nothing was ever found. Completely unrelated to that was a night where I walked into the back corner of this office where this one guy was working late. He didn't know that I could see him, and when I poked my head around the corner, he was deep-throating an entire sleeve of Oreo cookies. I'm not exaggerating when I say, he looked like a snake that had unhinged his jaw and was forcing the entire stack of cookies into his mouth. His eyes were rolled back in his head and teary, and he was jamming them in like some sort of monster. I just looked on in silent terror and quietly stepped away, hopefully before he noticed me. This next thing didn't happen to me, but it happened to my coworker Rob. Rob was put in one of our newer buildings, and none of us really knew the layout yet. It was an old building that used to be used by the local water department, and it had a huge underground portion with lots of pipes and what looked like boilers and tanks. On the second night, Rob goes down in the basement and does his rounds. He's checking to see what keys go to what rooms, and he finds out that a lot of them don't have keys at all. So he goes back and gets the master key and comes back down to hear someone has snuck down there in the time he was gone. He forgot to lock the door behind him when he left. He goes back in the back corner of this floor and turns on the light. You know when a light bulb has been off for a long time and you turn it on, they sometimes pop and go out. Well, Rob said that when he turned the light on, he caught a glimpse of a man standing in the room with a bag over his head before the light went out. He thought that there was nobody there, that it was just his mind playing tricks on him. But just as he thought that, he heard footsteps running away and he followed after the man with a flashlight. Rob was a big old boy and couldn't catch up to the guy, who apparently hid behind some pipes and crawled down behind where Rob could see. So Rob called the cops, and by the time they showed up, the guy was gone. They checked all the footage and never saw him leave out of any door or window. Sometimes things get pretty serious or bizarre with the people we come across. For the most part, it's just local teens walking around after dark. Most of them are just hanging out, smoking weed, or sitting around. No big deal. But on more than one occasion, I've had to deal with crazies that can only be explained years upon years of drug use. There's this one guy named Jake that shows up every once in a while, and he insists that gremlins are the source of all the world's troubles. If you talk with him any length of time, he explains that there are metaphysical, invisible creatures that he's dubbed gremlins that lurk in objects and that they're waiting to cause havoc at just the right time. He's dead serious about this and believes that most paranormal or unexplained phenomena are these creatures. In his words, the devil, Chupacabra, the government, nah, they're all gremlins. If you pull out your cell phone, he insists that you put it away, that it's filled to the brim with them. One time, at one of our more remote locations that was previously owned by a cult organization, we had a strange occurrence where several people in trucks, both men and women, had an impromptu party just outside of camera view. We had seen that there were 4 trucks packed with people, and security didn't react at first. And about 15 minutes later, security went down there and they all scrambled and sped off. On the spot where they had parked were over 20 used rubbers and wrappers. It had to be someone that knew those hidden cameras were there and had access to the front gate. But when investigation took place, it was suddenly hidden from all of us and became a classified matter.
Sup, X. I'm working third shift as a security guard right now at a hospital. Before you assume anything, no, this isn't, necessarily, a spooky haunted ghost hospital thread. I want to tell a few stories about some of the stuff I've experienced here so far. I won't mention any specifics like location, names, etc. I'll instead use substitutes and fake names. I just recently started working at this hospital as a security guard. The pay is okay. However, relative to the actual amount of work we do, it's good. I mostly patrol floors and hallways, lock up stairwells and rooms, and the occasional OB transfer. However, that's not what I'm here today to discuss. One of my duties is to check on another clinic off-site and make sure the doors are locked and secure. It's not a huge building, but it takes about 5 or 6 minutes to fully walk around. I mostly work second shifts, so when I go to check on it, it's in broad daylight. However, as of late, I've been working more third shifts, and well, it's eerie at night. Anyone who has worked security knows what I'm talking about. Even in a moderately sized college town like where I'm working, the nights are too quiet. Working third shift. Go check on off-site clinic since my buddy, we always work in 2AS, is doing a full hospital patrol, get into the company truck and head over to the clinic. Parking lot is poorly lit and there's not a single car in the lot. Park truck, get out, lock it, and turn on a cheap mag light. Start patrolling around the building, checking every door. One door, which is almost never unlocked, is unlocked. What the hell .jpg, lock it and go back to the office. Talk to my partner who is working a double shift before me. Ask him if he locked all the doors at the site. Yeah, dude, like always. Maybe it was just a strange occurrence or my coworker forgot about it, but regardless, it weirded me out. It keeps getting weird too. One of my other duties are mental health unit transfers. Essentially, either one or both of us, guards and a nurse, escort a mental patient to the mental health unit. First off, the mental health unit floor is weird. I remember very vividly that on one of my first shifts, another coworker who was training me at the time said, "When you're up here, keep your head on a swivel." I'm not exactly sure when, but in certain parts of the day, the patients are allowed out of their rooms to walk around, watch TV, and so on. Mind you, many of them are actually pretty normal. However, according to my coworkers, there are sometimes some genuine freaks up there, sitting in the office, doing nothing, waiting for a call. We get a call, mental health unit transfer. I decided to take the transfer alone to show my worth. Go to ED to collect patient. The patient is much taller than me, maybe 6'2", super skinny, tattooed, and has longish, stringy black hair. I notice that his arms are completely and utterly sliced up, stained with blood. Nurse and I start wheeling patient up to the mental health unit. Now normally I'm a nice guy and like to make conversation. Just small talk. But this guy didn't respond at all. Been raining all day, think it'll ever stop? Maybe the town will flood. The patient didn't even shake or nod his head, just silence. Have my key ring attached to a small carabiner on my pants. They jingle as we walk down the long hallway. The patient, speaking in a low, monotone voice, said to me, "You better put those keys in your pocket." Tries to stand out of the wheelchair. I say, "No worries, man," and put them in my pocket. "Sit back down, sir." The patient stands completely still for about 10 seconds, and then slowly sits back down into the wheelchair. Take him up to the mental health unit, and tell him what bed to take for the night. He gets up and looks me dead in the eyes, unflinching, with no expression. His eyes follow me the entire time until I eventually leave the room and go out the exit elevator. One time I had to go up to the 5th floor for a combative patient. Normally the 5th floor is for old people recovering from injuries or infections. Not this time though. Partner and I get a call for a combative patient on the 5th floor. Yelling, screaming, throwing stuff at nurses, probably just some old dude. We go up to the 5th floor and holy shit. Wailing can be heard throughout the entire ward. We rushed over to the patient's room. This dude has to be 6'4" to 6'5", and at least 300 pounds. His fists are the size of melons. He's laying in bed still, but even then, he's hulking. He's sweating bullets and his eye whites are red. As we walk in, he throws his cell phone at the nurse, who just narrowly dodged it. He's bellowing profanities and other incoherent nonsense at the top of his lungs. He tries getting out of bed. We approach him and order him to lie down. He goes silent for just a second, narrows his eyes at my coworker and says, "If you try laying your hands on me, I am going to knock the ever-loving shit out of you." Despite his passive resistance, he lays back down and continues yelling and making angry noises. We decided to leave the room because we figured our presence made things worse. We stand outside the room out of sight until he starts calming down. We wait for the doctor to arrive to give him some nice, sleepy, calm-down juice. Turns out he needs the double big boy dose. We decide to stick around for a bit after the doctor gives him the dose and leaves. It's quiet for some time, and then we hear soft crying. "I just want my family, my kids, my family, my kids. I just want to go home. I want to go home. Home. I want my kids. I want to go home." Apparently this guy has been in here for weeks recovering from an infection from a previous surgery, and he hasn't been able to do anything. He's quiet for some time, and then, out of nowhere, he lets out one blood-curdling wail. And then, silence again. The ward goes quiet. I got some information from the nurses, and the source of his tantrum was his girlfriend. Or I should say ex-girlfriend or ex-wife. He called her, and although the specifics of the call were left out, she must have upset him somehow and he flew into a rage. Sadly enough, I got a call to the same floor for the same guy the next day, which was Father's Day. The patient called his ex so he could talk to his kids, and she denied him. He got angry once again, but it wasn't like the day before. He seemed to be more in pain. "Who the hell does she think she is? How can she just take my kids away from me, all because of what's between her legs? I just want to talk to my kids. Please. Why me, God? Why? I just want to go home. Let me leave. I want to go home." After more or less of the same kind of lines, he went quiet and started softly crying again. I'm not sure if this comes off particularly creepy to you guys. If anything, it was just disturbing to me, to see a grown man pushed to his limits, experiencing both physical, emotional, and mental pain every day in his room without being able to move at all. To hear him wail because his ex denied him the right to talk to his children on Father's Day of all days. To see what he looked like with wild, red eyes. He really gave off that killing instinct. If I had to describe it, have you ever seen a nature documentary about lions and there's this lion chasing prey or fighting another male and he's just completely exhausted? But the cameraman gets that one angle of his face, with his jaw dropped, tongue racing in and out of his mouth with its eyes just completely open, full of bloodlust. It really reminded me of that. Be working second shift one day. Get a call from the head nurse, turns out someone died at the hospital. For some reason, security here is in charge of moving bodies to the morgue and later, to the funeral director outside so they can collect the body for the funeral. Go with partner to the room with the dead patient. I was expecting an old man, but unfortunately, it was a young girl, 14. She's in a huge plastic bag, which, near where her legs and pelvis would be, is all blood. We put her on the metal morgue transport table and all of a sudden blood just starts gushing out through a little opening and edge in the bag. It's absolutely putrid. It smells like a combination of iron and that musty old towel smell. We take her to the morgue and leave the official staff to take care of the rest. Go back to the previous room and ask about the details. Apparently this girl was water skiing on a lake and somehow she lost balance and did the splits. Well, she was in the splits for a good 25 or 30 seconds going at full speed and collided with one of those floating wooden platform docks that people like to use to chill on in a lake. She bled out and died when she got to the hospital. Her parents were completely distraught. You hear about it often, but to actually witness the visceral reaction two loving parents have when they find out their child is dead, it sticks with you forever.
Like I said, I'm alone, and I mean I'm very lonely since I stay here for 12 hours, sometimes 13. I don't like it. I've begun to get very bad anxiety from what it feels like unseen entities. Nothing cliché like typical paranormal entities. But I have such a stark feeling something else is in here with me, lurking or watching me. I usually sit in the corner next to a wall outlet with my phone plugged in, and my mind constantly assumes the worst. It feels like it's a mental attack on my sanity in here. The environment's look doesn't help one bit. I feel like a castaway, sent to purgatory in a surreal-looking space in our world. I know we exist and experience, but inside here, I feel like it's been a year of this, but I'm barely going on week 2 of this. I don't feel real inside here. Like I said, I'm alone, and I mean I'm very lonely since I stay here for 12 hours, sometimes 13. I don't like it. I've begun to get very bad anxiety from what it feels like unseen entities. Nothing cliché like typical paranormal entities. But I have such a stark feeling something else is in here with me, lurking or watching me. I usually sit in the corner next to a wall outlet with my phone plugged in, and my mind constantly assumes the worst. It feels like it's a mental attack on my sanity in here. The environment's look doesn't help one bit. I feel like a castaway, sent to purgatory in a surreal-looking space in our world. I know we exist and experience, but inside here, I feel like it's been a year of this, but I'm barely going on week 2 of this. I don't feel real inside here.
Regarding OP, you have the perfect security job, you dummy. This is the site everyone wants. Empty, quiet, no one to deal with, can literally spend your entire shift watching movies and getting paid for it. If you're actually worried about bad vibes, then you should already know how to deal with them if you're on this board. This is your chance to do some real meditation. Hardcore monks used to go meditate in graveyards to help overcome their fear of death. Scary or even hostile environments are actually really excellent for meditation practice, so get to work. Cultivate your positive energy and use it to fill the empty space around you until you've pushed out anything negative. Congrats, you've now turned your site into a warm and welcoming place.
I agree with your statement initially, and I'm not taking as existential as you would think. But this was a way of venting and talking about this topic. I'm experiencing it since I don't have that many friends in person. It's just draining. I do like my job for what it is. Unfortunately, the Wi-Fi is shit from the location I am posted to. It's very hit or miss, and my LTE is super unreliable inside there. Lately it has been raining hard all hours of the day since I am from the Midwest. The job is stupid easy. I mean, it's security, but there's no supervision of me, so I usually just watch YouTube or check Reddit and lurk on 4chan. But there's nothing fulfilling at all about the job. I feel like I am wasting my time while I am young. I just want college to start so I can talk to people again in person. I just hate the monotony and disconnect I feel from the outside world when I enter that building. It truly feels like time really flows completely differently inside there, akin to people in solitary confinement. It does things to you. Though again, I have it pretty nicely job-wise in terms of stress and effort needed. The camera doesn't really do the area justice. It's usually dark when I arrive in the mornings and dark whenever I leave. Earlier today, right after I had finished recording this, I swear I heard a toilet flush on the other side of the office. That was the first time I got creeped out from this place. Perhaps it was from a restroom outside of this office. Again, I don't know. It's really dark inside here, and sometimes I find myself dozing off and waking up feeling restless. Lately, I've just been watching philosophical videos on YouTube, but I just hate all the time it feels like I'm wasting here. I get nothing from this job, only solitude and silence, and that can be great. But I tend to lean extroverted, so it can be rough when nobody really wants to text me. I'm not much of a reader, but I really enjoy listening to podcasts and documentaries. So if you guys have any recommendations, let me know. Tomorrow I can post some more photos. Again, this site isn't that paranormal, it's just the general vibe I get from the place is something about it is off about it. I feel like I am being watched. It's so weird to describe. There isn't any camera in this area, hence why I was posted here. And there isn't anyone that comes to fix up the place. It just feels like a video game sometimes. All the assets and tiles have been placed, and there's a general idea that this is a level that had renovations you could conclude from the design of the level. However, due to it being a video game, there will never be progress made on said renovations. Silent Hill type surrealism. Everyone just feels off in this building. I really don't know why I'm watching this area. I swear time really is different inside there. Plus, the constant rain really puts me in a lethargic mood. But I can appreciate the comfiness and silence of the place. I'm just already tired of it. I hate that I feel stuck here, eternally damned to a forgotten place. Well, back into the depths.
Be me. Be Mexican security guard in a nice company, stationed at a dangerous place at a sorta safe room like cellar valve thing. I imagine the building of an old factory, but inside there's boxes, machines. I can distinguish a couple heavy-duty hammer things and some sewing machines, but others I have no idea, and safes. I have insurance for me and my family. Normally, I just have to walk around or read in my phone. But as I'm in an ugly zone, sometimes I have to kick hobos or shoot my shotgun at the sky to scare lacras. Actually, have been shot but wasn't hit. I returned fired, but they drove off. Haven't had any incidents since then. Was standing at my phone box behind the gate and saw a car approaching awkwardly, as if they wanted to look normal. They stop in front of the gate and a guy waves at me to make me go out of my box. It's bulletproof and I don't know if they were aware of it or not. At this point, I'm in yellow alert, thinking maybe they are lost or something like that. Scream, "What?" in my "I don't like you" voice. He stops and his hand goes under the window while licking his lips. Training kicks in, drops my phone and goes under the desk while getting ready to shoot my shotgun. Bang, bang, bang. Adrenaline flowing, just take out my shotgun and shoot it where I think the car was. Like imagine Gears of War, the way like you shot undercover. Keep shooting in slow intervals like they teach me while radioing. The local police can hear that some of my shots hit the car, and at some point the guy or someone else, cause I hear "Vergay," and then proceed to hear the tires screeching and driving off. Later found a couple of drops of blood at the gate, so at least I hurt them. But needless to say, I was afraid the whole time. I forget to mention that my arm and shoulder hurt like hell after that. Don't try to shoot a shotgun with one hand, even if you're a big guy like me. Anyway, this one is from a couple of years ago. Back when I was just starting as a security guard, I was working at an abandoned hospital that had just closed. It was called San Rafael or something like that. And let me tell you, that place was hell on earth. When I was contracted, I didn't even have experience in nothing but fights and really needed the money, so I accepted. I already had my military service, Even though I didn't have any insurance, according to the night guard, a funny old guy, there were like exorcisms and tortures performed by the hospital crew. I really didn't believe it. It's normal for people to try and scare the new guy, but I will say that the hospital had a sort of religious vibe, like some windows were of colors like in churches and a big Jesus in the lower floor. I always give the chills, even though I always don't know how to say it in English, but I make a cross in my chest. Anyway, to the story. Be me 2 months in, and so far, had only had children doing graffiti or cats inside, nothing serious. The hospital was divided into 4 floors. I count the rooftop as one. I never had problems in the upper floors, but the lower ones. Those were a different story. There were rooms with dirty mattresses on them, and stuff I always feel uncomfortable in them. One day, like at 7 or 8 p.m., my shift ends at 10 p.m. I wanted to go downstairs to check on the lower floors, because I was hearing noises, not abnormal ones like this place was old, but not that old to make this type of noises. I was preparing myself to book it if I saw 3 or more teens, but didn't find anything. One thing I remember is the coldness of the hallway, and a feeling of being watched like every step I gave was a red flag in my brain. I didn't dare to continue, and just went to the main gate to wait for my buddy. I finished my contract in 2 more months, where I didn't do anything but walk around the building. It was a very calm but weird place. After that, I worked as a security guy in a bank. Now with insurance, next to an OXXO, like a 7-Eleven but better, and that's all I have.
I was 23, fresh out of college working a dead-end job as a security guard in an office building in Bloomington, Minnesota. For those interested, it is the Southgate building at 5001 American Boulevard W. I worked the night shift more often than not, which ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Most nights I would come in and the restaurant attached to the building would be wrapping up their night, and maybe a few office people throughout the building working super late for whatever reason. My only real task was to do 3 rounds per night and lock the building down. They kept track of you using something called a Degi wand that made sure you actually did the rounds by touching it to little metal receivers throughout the building. You could do 3 in a row for all they cared, but I usually spaced mine out a bit. First at 10 p.m. right away, second at midnight, and third around 2-3 a.m. First round, 10 p.m. I go the usual route I always take. Hit the basement and parking garage, take the elevator to the top floor, and then walk the floors. Walk 1 floor, take the stairs to the next level, and keep moving like that back and forth all the way down. I check every door to every office to see if it's locked. One person working late, an old lady psychologist that was wrapping up when I popped my head in. Saw her car in the parking garage earlier, so knew she was still there. Other than that, every door was locked. Along the way, I locked every entrance except the garage door since the old lady was still there. I also locked every bathroom and utility closet since the cleaners had finished up. Go down to the restaurant and eat some leftover stuff they were going to toss and chill at the guard station. Second round, midnight. Restaurant workers are all gone, so I lock the only door linking the restaurant to the building. Do the exact same thing as before. The old lady's car is gone, so I know she left. Lock the garage doors. When I get to her office, it's locked. Good job, old lady. Every door along my entire route was locked. They have now been checked twice. Go back to the guard station and chill. Nobody is in this building. All the doors and access points are locked. Watch some YouTube on my phone and take a snooze. Third round, 2:30 a.m., doing my round. All doors locked. Need to take a piss. While walking the 3rd floor, almost done, I decide to use the restroom, checking doorknobs as I go. Office locked, office locked, office locked, women's restroom locked, utility closet locked, men's restroom. Pull my keyring out and unlock it. Go inside, take a leak, wash my hands, look at myself in the mirror. I remember smelling something odd, like sulfur, but figure I'm in a men's shitter, so who cares? Head back out. As soon as I open the door, I notice shit all over the floor. mops, brooms, cleaning supplies, buckets, etc. The door to the utility closet, the one I checked 3 times and just checked a minute ago, is wide open. It's empty, totally empty. Everything that was in it is all over the floor. All the debris was still moving sightly, as if it had just finally hit the ground and come to a rest, buckets rolling a little, etc. I never heard a sound, and the building was quiet at this point. I just stood there for a minute trying to figure out what I was seeing before I got the creeps and just noped the hell out of there. Went right back to the guard station and just sat there till the end of my shift. I decided that there were 3 possibilities and none of them were good. 1. I am losing my mind. 2. Some sort of paranormal shit just happened and I'm the only one in this haunted ass building. 3. Somebody was inside the utility closet. I locked it, but it isn't like I checked inside before I did so. And since most buildings are designed to not allow you to trap people in, besides prisons, I guess, doorknobs generally are unlockable from inside. A person could have been in there and burst out and took off. This option was also strange because they would have had to hear me check the door on what would be my last round. But instead of going my usual path, I deviated and took a piss. So what were they waiting for? Anyways, not as climactic as one might hope, but it is a full accounting of a strange experience I've had. Nobody ever mentioned shit laying all over the 3rd floor the next day. I never brought it up. Let me know your stories. Maybe I will tell you a few of my others. Much shorter, of course. Just wanted to give you the details. Cheers. Pick related. A shitty MS Paint drawing of the scene. Interesting side note. One of the bouncers at the restaurant, on weekends they turned it into a nightclub after like 7 p.m., was bullshitting with me one night and claimed to be a medium. Oh boy, I thought, a whack job. He said he could see people's auras and see their guardian angels. I think he used this as some half-assed pickup thing with girls, because he would always talk about how pretty some chick's aura was and how her guardian angel was really resplendent and shit. But I asked him one night about myself. What he saw, said I was the only person he had ever met without an aura, so that's fun, and said my guardian angel was hundreds of miles away. So I got that going for me, which is nice. But the thing he said that relates to my story is that he said there were spirits in the building. So I asked them where the spirits were, if he could tell where they were in the building. So he puts his head to the wall and does his thing. Without a moment's pause, he says a few spots and then says a demon is on the 3rd floor. After that, I didn't talk with him much more. Was too much. I was already skipping my rounds. That sealed it. Pick related. Forgot to post picture to my last post. It's a shit MS Paint drawing of the scene.
Be a security guard. Working at a factory overnight, they don't keep the place running on weekends, so need security to keep out dumb teenagers and drugged out bums. Be watching House of Cards on my phone. My watch beeps. Time to do my hourly sweep. Grab my flashlight and make the rounds. The factory is a steel house, mainly to make parts for Japanese cars. They melt steel down into these bars the size of telephone poles and store them for later use. Walking by this huge shelf where they keep said steel bars. All of a sudden I hear, clear as day, someone whisper, "Stop." I shine my flashlight around, don't see anything, take another step. I said, "Stop." Get my shoulder grabbed from behind, blood runs cold as ice. I hear creaking, all of a sudden one of these huge steel bars comes crashing down on the concrete floor. It's so fucking loud. It misses me by less than a foot. I trip backwards, fall flat on my ass. Shine the flashlight around, don't see anything, the place is pretty open. Sit there and stare at this steel bar that would have fucking crushed me. Swallow, shake it off, and walk back to my little office to call my boss and tell him what happened. Leave out the part where my ass was saved by a ghost. I still think about it often.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.